the overall problem is the focus.
Right.
The focus is constantly on the differences.
Right.
And which instills, animosity towards one another. That creates that huge divide. And with Purple America Challenge, all we're focusing on are the similarities
Right.
and ways that we can work together.
Absolutely. It's that sort of belief that there is common ground. And so it's opening the dialogue to see how we do agree and how we can work together, because there's this sort of stereotype that Republicans have about Democrats, that all Democrats are these sort of bleeding heart, hippie liberal baby killers. And then, Democrats have this sort of stereotype of Republicans that they're these sort of, gun-toting, Bible thumping, intolerant, gay hating, keep all the money for the rich. And neither of those are really true. And I think that, the fact that people buy into these stereotypes sort of prevents them from listening to one another. And I think that's the real problem, is that people aren't listening enough. And then Republicans and Democrats in Congress will sort of play up these stereotypes. And it's counterproductive, because then if they start working with one another, their constituents say, well, hey, didn't you say this about the Republican Party? So why are you working with them? And vice versa. And so they're really setting themselves up for failure. And which is why I like the Purple America Challenge idea so much, is it's opening that dialogue, and letting people know that, yeah, we do have different ideas of how government should operate and what the role of government in our lives should be. But there are some aspects where we agree. So let's sort of start there and begin a conversation.
Absolutely.
So I have a lot of hopes for what this can do in the future. What are your hopes for Purple America Challenge?
Well, especially going into the midterm elections, and I'm managing a congressional campaign. It's something that'll be good for my health, I'm sure. But I really just hope we can get other young people, either to just, get involved in their organization, or just in their personal lives, to not buy into the negativity that's out there right now. And hopefully that'll encourage them to work together with one another. The ultimate goal being that hopefully, we could have the young Democrats, young Republicans coming together for these charity efforts. And any media that we may get out of this, any media attention out of this, I just hope it's a positive and encouraging message to people of all ages, that folks like us that are young activists, we're not buying into it. We're not going to be like that. We're not going to spend the rest of our lives living in a very divisive country. We're not going to tear each other down. We're going to focus on what we can get accomplished and agree on, and, work from there. So we're going to make something happen.
Yeah.
We're going to do it together.
Absolutely. I hear that. And I think that's the most important piece of this, is encouraging people to work together. I don't think enough of that is done. As you said, the media tends to focus on differences instead of those commonalities. So my hope is that there can be these sort of, Purple America Challenge days, across the country, where on college campuses you see, both student groups, Republicans and Democrats, putting aside partisan differences and coming together to work for, volunteer, fundraise for nonpartisan causes, and then begin to, create those conversations and create that dialogue, because we're obviously not asking people to jeopardize their principles. Or I know certainly neither of us have done that.
There's no chance of us changing ideologically, and we don't want people to do that. We just want them to remember that we're all Americans. We all love our country.
Right.
We all care passionately about, the direction and the state of our government and our communities. So let's just focus on what we can agree on and what we can do together. So
yeah, absolutely. A lot of people ask me, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, like, wow, you're in your 20s, in your early 20s, and yet you've already done so much, like, you're very involved, very passionate. So where do you think that comes from for you?
For me personally, I grew up with some political talk around me. You know, there was the talk radio in the background. My grandfather and my family were Republicans for the most part, but nobody was in office. You know, that they donated a little bit, but it definitely wasn't pushed upon me. I wasn't going to political events or anything like that. We just watched the news and that's about it. But I became very enthralled in campaigns. You know, especially leading back to even to the 2000 election. I remember I was very young then. I don't even remember how old I was. But I would watch the news and I would just be so interested in that. And I started reading the newspaper and discussing it in school. And really, I could talk to my teacher, you know, very fluently about it. And they would be very surprised by that. And it went on and it got to the point where it was like, if I care so passionately about it, you know, why am I not doing something about it? And I think a lot of young people are held back by the idea that they're young, so they can't, it's not their place to get involved. But I definitely did not submit to that idea. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I do remember when September 11th happened, and, you know, several elections went on, and there were a lot of divisive issues in the media and stuff that just really caught my attention and encouraged me, you know, that paying attention to, you know, national affairs, domestic affairs was really important. You know, this stuff can hit home, and I got involved. I didn't let my age stop me. You know, my mom thought I was crazy when I came in one day and said, "Can you take me to a GOP meeting at 8:30 on a Saturday morning?" And she asked me to repeat myself, and she thought I was nuts. But I went to the meeting, and Bob Barr spoke at the meeting, and that was when he was still a Republican.
Right.
So this was a while back.
Right.
And then I got up and spoke. And after I spoke, I walked to the back to where my mom was sitting, and she goes, "Jade, I didn't know you could do that, but you keep doing it, and I'll take you wherever you want to go." And I was like 15 then, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've just been going strong ever since then. I love being involved. There's no intimidation factor as far as my age or what I've accomplished or whatever, and it's just like, it's an obsession, but it's a good obsession because you're making a positive impact and you're helping people. You're making a difference. You're involved.
Absolutely. And I think our age is actually an advantage, because when it's not the same hearing from some 50-year-old, you know, white politician than hearing from young 20-somethings who care passionately about the issues and are well-versed in the issues. I think that really sort of takes people aback, and they're more open to listening to what we have to say, because it's something that doesn't come around every day.
We have the most at stake. We're going to be around the longest amount of time.
Absolutely.
So getting involved in the decision-making process now, it's like, you know, this is our lives. You guys have lived through this a while, you know?
And shaping really the views of the next generation.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to be around. I want to be in charge. I want to be a part of the decision-making process. I want to be a part of the, you know, molding the direction of our country. You know, you guys had your chance. Now let us see what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I it really resonated with me what you said about your mom just being shocked that 15 years old and you want to go to a meeting at Saturday, on Saturday morning. Yeah, I mean, I get that question asked all the time, and I always tell people, you know, some 20-somethings like to go to bars or to parties for fun. I like to canvass and register folks to vote. You know, that to me is fun. But I can say, you know, growing up, I was raised in a very sort of politically apathetic family. Both my parents were pretty indifferent when it came to politics. They voted, you know, every 4 years for the president, and that's basically it. And they were sort of politically all over the place. In 92, they voted for Perot. In 96, they voted for Clinton. And so it was, you know, they weren't affiliated with one party. I luckily have sort of brought them over to my side since then. But so it wasn't until college that I got involved in politics. And I have to say, you know, George W. Bush probably made it very easy for me to start paying attention to the issues.